5 years ago, I discovered that my wife had been unfaithful. A friend had tipped her off, mentioning that he'd seen her with a man, someone who was hugging her in a way that made it clear they weren't just friends. From that moment, I started keeping an eye on her, waiting for the truth to unfold. Sure enough, one day, when she left the house, I followed her. I watched as she got out of the car, met up with a tall, sharp-looking guy, and kissed him with passion right there in the street. Then they jumped into his fancy car and drove off. I stood there frozen, feeling this deep stab of pain, betrayal, disbelief, the kind of hurt that cuts to the core. When she returned home later, I confronted her, told her exactly what I had seen. She didn't try to hide anything. Instead, she asked me to pack my bags and get out without making a scene. Her words stung like fire. "You're a joke," she yelled. "You're almost 27, and we're still stuck in this crummy rented place. You spend your nights fishing and drinking instead of doing something with your life. I can't stand you. Get lost." The insults just kept pouring out, one after another, until she grabbed her things and left. I stood there stunned, feeling like everything I thought I knew about us had just shattered. It felt like a punch in the gut. I'd always believed she was my partner, my support, someone I could count on for the long haul. But I was wrong. Soon after, I found out that the man she'd left me for was wealthy, and I couldn't help but think she was in it for his money. At first, I was hurt. I felt betrayed, and honestly, it stung for a while. But then something inside me snapped. Instead of sinking into self-pity, I told myself I'd show her. I would get successful, become wealthy, just to prove her wrong. Her words about me being a loser lit a fire under me. I worked harder than ever, pushing myself day and night. My friend and I came up with a business idea, which slowly but surely began to take shape. During the year, I'd earned more than $10,000 a month. A year later, I was earning over $70,000 a month. Business was booming, and so was I. I got involved in sports, got interested in singing, started traveling, and I started having new hobbies. My life was no longer about making ends meet. I wanted to live, grow, become what I once dreamed of. Out of the blue, my ex-wife called me, begging for a meeting. Reluctantly, I agreed. We sat down in a cafe, and she began pouring her heart out. Apparently, her lover had promised her marriage, only to turn his back on her when things got tough. She ranted about her dead-end job, and how she was stuck in a shabby little apartment that barely cost anything. She looked completely different, heavier, older. Her once radiant beauty faded. She begged me to give her another chance, to somehow fix everything. I stared into her eyes, took her hands in mine, and repeated the very words she'd once thrown at me, "Go to hell, loser." I stood up, walked away, and didn't even glance back. Surprisingly, I felt no sympathy for her. If anything, I was filled with relief and a strange joy. Justice had been served. A short while later, I married a kind, down-to-earth woman, and we had 2 beautiful children together. Life settled into a wonderful routine, and the whole mess with my ex-wife faded from my mind, like a bad dream I'd long forgotten.